Do not come. Do not come.
I'm going to come.
Good morning, Starbuck. What do you hear?
Nothing but the rain.
Grab your gun and bring in the cat.
Boom, boom, boom.
We are also praying for the people of Puerto Rico. We love Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. And we also love Puerto Rico.
All right, everybody. Happy Sunday to you all. This is Rolo the Puerto Rican Pistolero coming to you live from beautiful Miami, Florida. It's great to see you all. I hope you've had an excellent week thus far and that you are ready for what is to come. Summer's coming around the corner. We are in May. I can't believe it. The year feels like it's just been flying by. It's already, it's already, almost halfway through, and it seems like a lot's happened. We've reached the 100-day milestone of President Trump's administration. I was going to say ministry because you guys are talking about the Pope meme in the chat, which I thought was pretty funny. So you're right on time, Den Hog Tua. We've got Novella Princess, Forgotten Man, Den Hog Tua, Patriot from Warsaw, JM the Elite Fan, Socrates McGoat. What is up, everybody? Great to see you all. I'm wearing a hat. I haven't worn a hat in a really long time, actually. Now that I think about it. I kind of stopped wearing hats, and in a way it's a shame because I've got a really, really extensive collection of hats. I think that I remember the best compliment that I got one time was on Tuesday. Well, as far as hats are concerned, I've gotten some pretty good compliments that have to do with more of my personality or achievements than the hats that I wear. But I remember one time somebody on in the chat in Tuesday night's main event was like, "Man, Rolo's hat game is almost as on point as Ripa's," and I was like, "Damn, that's pretty good," because Ripa's got some of the best hats around. So I was pretty happy about that. I'm actually moving some things and getting rid of a lot of stuff. And I was looking through some of my hat collection today, and I was like, man. I remember those. Those were some of the crowd favorites. And so I figured that today was appropriate, being May the 4th, even though it's Disney's contrived Star Wars holiday, this is the day that we are doing this show. So we're going to talk about Star Wars for a decent amount of the show. I know I kind of did last week talking about episode 3, but we can talk about Star Wars today. I'll rank which ones of the George Lucas pre-Disney Star Wars are my favorites, and talk about some things like that. I'll talk about some of my favorite Star Wars video games as well. Hopefully everything will work. We're on the new rig right now, so let me know how everything looks, sounds, and even feels. So if you feel that warm and fuzzy feeling inside while you're watching the show, then smash the like button. Even if you're not feeling it, go ahead and smash it anyway if you're picking up what I'm putting down right now. So we're going to talk about that. I've got a few stories that are fairly interesting. I know a lot of people have been talking about the trade war, where the tariffs are and everything like that, and the direction we're moving. It seems like China is kind of quietly dropping some $40 billion worth of tariffs on some American products. We'll see how everything plays out in the end. I've always been a proponent. Look, I mean, I've got this hat right here, which I know is a favorite of many of you. Make taxation theft again. I don't like any sort of taxation. Tariffs, income tax, none of it. Property tax is probably the most egregious. It's all bad. It's all bad. I'm also a realist in the sense that I know that I'm not going to get most of what I want in this world. So you have to have degrees of, well, if we're on a scale of things aren't great right now, but we can make them a little bit better, then I'm like, well, I'm not going to let perfect become the enemy of good in the regard for certain issues, as far as that's concerned. So it doesn't mean that you're not going to strive for the best that you can do, which would be no taxes whatsoever. But I know realistically that's not going to happen. And in a society that can't handle certain things, I'd rather at least limit the damage the government can do, give them less money, even if I can't get rid of their grubby paws from all of my money. So, I'll take a few fingers away. It's better than having both, both hands strangling me around my neck, and then having somebody else rip everything that I own out of my pockets, because that's really how it feels. So I'll take a little bit less. So, and tariffs at least are more of a consumptive tax. Like I said before, I would rather have cheaper American goods, cheaper property, give people a means to live. And if we have to save up to buy TVs and other things like that, even computers and consoles, we've been riding the gravy train of a lot of cheap stuff, and we almost feel entitled to it. And that's how we were trapped in the society that we live in. And it's going to change a lot of things. I really do think that way. And there's going to be a lot of psychological there's a lot of a psychological effect that the prices of certain things going up is going to change. And I think you're also going to see a kind of an envy. And I think this is where China and some Asian countries can almost use psychological warfare, whereas a lot of those goods that are manufactured overseas become possibly prohibitively expensive for many Americans. You're going to see influencers in other parts of the world kind of bragging that they can still buy all these cool things for super cheap. We'll see how long that power dynamic lasts without U.S. capital flowing in there. But it's something that will happen, and it's something that people will need to get used to. So, we can eliminate globalization. We can insulate and change globalization on kind of an economic and manufacturing level. But as far as communication and media, that's not going to go away. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic of the psychological warfare, the willpower that the American people are going to have. But ultimately, I don't think that a trade war can last a long time without eliminating income tax. And so in the past, when there were tariffs and we lived in the Gilded Age of the United States, first of all, things were very, very different. The dynamics, people call it the Golden Age of the United States. Yeah, but I don't know if the middle class would have felt that way. It was still kind of that same aristocratic flair that we had, but I do think that having more self-sufficiency would be great. That's one of the reasons why I'm kind of making the decisions that I'm making in life. And I've enjoyed working and trying to restore a property that we've got in Puerto Rico. So I definitely understand the striving for that, and I think that's something that everybody should try to do. And everybody should want to have property and work on things themselves, save money however they can. But it will be interesting to see these dynamics in play and how things have been in the United States for pretty much the entire lives of millennials at this point, and Gen Xers, and seeing that a potential devolution in expectations. Some people aren't going to handle that. They're going to be upset about it, especially if they don't have the cash flow to show it. So I think income tax elimination has to be a high priority here. It's going to throw things into whack, obviously, because we're not going to have a consistent budget, but our government is printing out money like crazy all the time anyway. So these are all necessary things. I always, I'm always of the thinking that it's just something that has to be done, and it's going to be, we're damned if we do and damned if we don't at this point. And Trump is kind of singularly equipped to be able to do this because he doesn't have to worry about re-election. At the same time, that does put the pressure on him. And it is quite possible that there just is not enough time in 4 years to right the ship and to go against 120 years of what the United States is now in the post-income tax era. And in the way, in the post-Fed era, the post-World War II era, these are all the major events and changes within the U.S. system that have led to this country becoming what it is, and also leading to the perversion of capitalism. And I mean, look, we're always going to have that, right? Rampant, pure capitalism, will lead to robber barons, monopolies, things like that. And yes, I know a lot of the libertarians would be like, well, I'd rather deal with that. We know what it's going to go to, because if there's one thing that humans are good at, they're undefeated at doing evil shit. So, I think that being a realist, it doesn't mean that I want the government to have more power. Absolutely not. But I'm also under no illusion in thinking that mega corporations are going to be better or worse than government and dealing with them, and thinking that they won't set up some sort of alliances and that's going to be infinite, competition. No, I don't think it's going to be that way. And I also think that, there is an element of chaos into that society that a lot of people are not going to like. So it'll have its downs. I think you can think of the Wild West as a lot of what you would expect in like a pure libertarian society. And in some ways, yeah, there's a romance to, hey, I've got my property and I protect it and all that stuff. Yeah, that means that people can just come and take it from you, right? You've got no protections, you've got no constitution, no nothing like that. So it's like, how close to anarchy do you want to get? Like, what's acceptable, what's okay, where's the balance? So it's never going to be perfect, because that's just how humans are. It's the same reason why the utopian, authoritarian, communistic, socialistic stuff never works. And we've already seen that side of the spectrum. I think that what we're seeing now is this is crony capitalism, what we're seeing, with elements of fascism, obviously, because you're having a collusion between corporations and government to, kind of act in an authoritarian manner. I think that's what we've seen in the West for a while. And we were moving very, very quickly into that direction with the last administration. I think we're moving away from it here. I think technology is something that's going to change rapidly how these things play out. AI is obviously going to change the world in very unpredictable ways. So, I think that that will obviously change things. You'll have a lot of jobs disappear. It's going to be a very powerful tool. I think it will save lives. It will also take lives away, and it's going to change a lot of things. And we'll see how our society is going to work. I think that we're going to have population decline is going to be another concern that's going to change certain things. So you're going to see the tax landscape change in a lot of countries. You're going to see demographic changes. If people don't start having kids in the West, then the entire Islamic invasion is already changing the West. I think even Canada, 30% of Canadians, I believe, are foreign born at this point. And I'm not trying to be alarmist or anything like that. So I don't think that immigration is a bad thing, but I think that when you have cultural erosion where you don't even care about your own cultures and you don't even try to take the good things from certain cultures, almost like the way that the Roman Empire did, you're just going to fall completely apart. And I think that's what the West has done. It is so ashamed of, the West is so ashamed of the past and of wars and of colonialism and conquering things instead of being, and completely disregarding the good things that Western civilization created. The forms of government that we have, the technological advancements, the art and society that was created by the West. Obviously, the rise of Christianity as a religion, different philosophies. I mean, there are a lot of things to be proud of, and we grew out of the same common things that always affect humanity, which is there's always a tendency for authoritarianism, and there is always pain and suffering. And I think that we've moved towards a world where there's a lot less, pain and suffering for people, but it's still a world that is fallen, and terrible things are going to happen. And so we can't eliminate all of that, and it's unrealistic to think so. And you can become oppressive in the other way by taking away all freedom. And so we're entering like a reverse approach for authoritarianism. But we've also become unrealistic because the West, even though the West shaped the entire world, when the West fell into decline after World War II, the rest of the world hadn't been playing by our rules. They were much more realistic and a might makes right society, whether it was the Soviet Union, the Middle East, Africa, or Asia. Those are much more, realistic and harsh environments where, the rule of law and things like that don't exist. And, just making gentlemen's agreements and turning your back on somebody, you think that's fine. That's not how it works in the real world. And I think we're clashing with that. We've tried to bring in cultures without assimilating them that operate on that level. And it's allowed us to be consumed on the inside. So I think that, we need to be realistic about certain things. And is it too late the way that we're going? I don't know. And that's my concern. And I'll always bring it up. And some people take it both ways, right? Some people can be like, well, you're not faulting anything that Trump is doing. I think I'm pretty critical of Trump, and I always have been, in a fair way. Obviously, I want him to succeed. I voted for the guy twice. But I didn't vote for him the first time. I didn't vote at all in that one because I knew Hillary was evil, and I thought Trump was actually a Trojan horse. I didn't trust him. I was like, there's no way this guy's conservative. So I think we've got to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I'm also realistic, and I know how most people think. I know what they're going to look at, and I don't know if the American people fully have the stomach to get through it. I know the media is going to push back against everything that he does at every turn, and there have been some fumbles, right? I think the whole walls getting switched to the UN ambassador, there is some sketchiness involved there. I think it does have to do with some of the way that the internal messages were handled, which it's like you got to do a little bit better. You're always going to receive scrutiny from the media. So in some ways, we have to be even more perfect and professional than the left. So you can't use like messaging apps and things like that. Even if the information is not classified, it's just not professional. So I think that's probably what happened there, why it was like a side grade kind of thing. It was weird, but it is what it is. How's it going, Dom? Good to see you. I will be in, on a side note here, and this will probably end up being a tangent, but I am going to be going to Orlando sometime this week. It's actually been quite a long time since I've been there. And I'm going to Epic Universe. I think that's going to be interesting. And it comes at an interesting time, and this kind of goes into the discussion of the trade war and the tariffs, because by all accounts, it seems like the theme park industry is expecting a huge downturn. I believe that Universal's profits were down, or park attendance is down 14% over the year in general in Central Florida. I think there's a few different factors involved. Obviously, we had a huge amount of pent-up demand after COVID, which led to, attendance numbers, a huge spike for a while there. But I think, the economy's been slowing down for a while. I think that people have finally realized how awful Central Florida is during the summer. Even Miami is not nearly as bad, and that's because we're up against the coast. But where the parks are, it's about 50 minutes inland, almost dead center in Florida as far as where Disney is, and it can be very brutal. Like July in Florida is one of the worst places on earth. It really is. It feels like you're just being eviscerated. So I think a lot of people are starting to figure this out and how terrible it is. I think, with everything going on with tariffs and prices fluctuating, that's having an effect. And, there's a little bit of a lag there. As far as Epic Universe is concerned, I know I was always looking forward to this park. I think that there's a lot of innovation involved there. It's been in previews for a little bit over a month now at this point. So if you haven't seen most of the park at this point, I mean, you're probably just not paying attention to things and you don't want to be spoiled, which is fantastic. I had the opportunity to take a lot of footage there when the park was being constructed. A lot of drone footage, so I got to see it pretty early on before I left Orlando. I wish I had the opportunity to stay there and really put everything together from start to finish. But I think that when you in today's era, this is the first park that we've had, first major theme park that we've had constructed in Florida since 1999, when Islands of Adventure was built. If we want to talk about, water parks and things like that, yes, we've got Volcano Bay, but water parks only have a fraction of the attendance that theme parks do and amusement parks do. And I think that because of the amount of hype that's been building up with this park. I think the fact that one of the sections of the park we've already seen for the most part in the Super Nintendo world, that's kind of tampered some of the hype. I think just having so much of the access to the park and the way it's constructed with theme park influencers, it's an onslaught of media exposure that we've never had before. So I think that some of the hype has died down. I think the economic situation has affected things, and I think that's why you're seeing the change in the way that things are. So typically in the past, in the preview season, you wouldn't see the type of access that they have now. I believe that the park is operating at 20 to 30% capacity during preview to make sure that, you know, all the systems are go, that the staff is trained, get the kinks out of the rides. You know, you're going to have ride problems and downtime and things like that, like everything else with new attractions and new technologies, integrating everything together, training all of your staff. So we've been seeing that, but I think that, you know, you're seeing some of those attendance numbers and expectations drop, and that's why Universal is opening up preview to everybody that wants to buy tickets. And I think that even then they weren't able to sell out some of the preview days, from what I heard. And, you know, they've opened up the media, so now everything is out there. People have seen the park. And, you know, I think some people have overhyped it. Some people are being critical. I think that because of the quality of work that Universal gave us more recently, you know, the expectations were almost unrealistic for the park. So I think people are kind of lukewarm to it. I think it's going to be fantastic. I think the way that it compares to, does it compare to Islands of Adventure during launch? And that's going to be something that's going to be difficult to gauge. For me, you know, I'm 38 years old. So Islands of Adventure released, and I went to the previews for that park. I was in the 6th grade, I remember. And so for me, there's an emotional attachment to Islands of Adventure. That's really when I grew up and I came of age with roller coasters and everything like that. And there was never anything like Islands of Adventure built. You know, Disney obviously really created the modern theme park industry that we know of as today. You know, in the past, most things were like they were just amusement parks, right? That's why there's a difference between a theme park and an amusement park. And you know, they were basically just carnivals. They were permanent carnivals. They had basic rides. Maybe you had some great roller coasters, but there was not really anything themed about it. Maybe it was nice gardens and fountains, and you had a fireworks show, sure. But creating immersive worlds that are, you know, self-contained is really something that that Walt Disney created with Disneyland in 1955. And we've seen the evolution of that through the years with how other parks have tried to emulate that since. But it wasn't until, you know, Islands of Adventure that I think is the first time that you really saw a true competitor. Now, Universal before that obviously had world-class attractions, but, you know, the theming of Universal has always been, it's just like a movie studio. That's it. So there wasn't anything truly ambitious about that. But, you know, Islands took that to the next level. I think that you had the quality of Disney. Now, part of this was that many of the former Disney Imagineers at the time had shifted over and they joined Universal. You know, Disney was kind of going through a strange phase there. Animal Kingdom was coming out. Greg the Goblin with the $20. Wait, it's Sunday. Dropping $20 on the table. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate you. Or this turned into some theme park talk because I'm going into Epic Universe this week. And I'll try to vlog it. I don't know how it's going to be. And I know how I am when it comes to this, especially because this is going to be my one shot for probably a very long time. You know, I used to go to the parks there are times when I've gone like 3 times a week when I lived in Orlando. I love the parks. I lived and breathed all of that stuff. I really do. It's a passion of mine, but I haven't been there in like a year and a half, and so I'm excited about this. I probably won't be back for probably just as long of a time, I would think. And so I really want to take it all in. I want to ride as much as possible. So I know that it's going to be difficult for me to be as detail oriented as I like to be. I think the wonderful thing about being able to live in a place like Orlando is that you can really pay attention to the details. Now, the modern parks, Universal has taken up the mantle of this much better, but Disney obviously created this. But immersing yourself, looking at the quality, the Easter eggs, the lore that is behind the parks themselves and the world building is really fantastic. And I think what was great about Disney early on, and even what Universal is trying to do in some ways now, was it wasn't IP based ride creation. Obviously there were always the characters that we know and love. You had Peter Pan, Mickey Mouse, and many others that have created a lot of classic rides. But you had things like Space Mountain or Pirates of the Caribbean, and the Jungle Cruise. These were all original concepts for the most part, and they stood alone. They stood with the test of time. As far as Islands of Adventure, you had the Lost Continent, which delved into medieval and fantasy lore, but it wasn't tied to any sort of IP, and that was nice and refreshing. Even Toon Lagoon, it's multiple franchises and IPs, so it's something original. And yes, you had Seuss Landing and Jurassic Park and Marvel Superhero Island, which were heavily IP based, but the theming just ran so well together. The Ring park design worked well, and I think it was absolutely amazing at the time. And really, it was a more mature and adult park, and that's something I was looking for during that age. I was something like 12 years old, and like 10 years old or younger, and so I was really going into that stage of my life where I wanted to ride roller coasters. I wanted things that were more thrilling, and Islands of Adventure brought that experience to the table that Disney was not doing, and really has not ever done, and something that I think they need to change. So it really felt like that park. I grew up with that park, and to this day, I think it stands the test of time. And I don't know if Epic Universe is going to be able to stand up to that. I think that obviously the nostalgia is going to cloud a lot for me, and expectations change over time. But I am very excited about the park and what they're trying to do there. I think that I already knew there were going to be some lost opportunities there with some of the decisions that they had made early on when the ride lineup was finalized. And I can see why there are some disappointments. I think that over the years, there are parks throughout the world that have finally caught up to what Disney and Universal have been able to produce, and they've been taking more risks. And some of these parks are also associated with ride companies. So Europa Park in Germany would be the best example, where it started as almost an imitation of Disney and an amalgamation of a bunch of mock rides, catalog. It has evolved into something else, and you can see a lot of innovative rides there. And a lot of the rides that exist in this park are mock rides. The thing is that I think that mock provides things like, spinning cars and trains and things like that. And I think that Universal kind of lost opportunities to incorporate some of their more innovative elements there. I think Stardust Racers is probably going to go down as one of the best roller coasters ever made. Had it been a spinning intense roller coaster with those elements, if that's possible, it would have been hands down the greatest ride ever made. And so I'm surprised that they didn't incorporate some things like that. I think that the Central Hub theme is good, but I think they could have gone even further with it, with the whole steampunk, Jules Verne space travel universe aesthetic. I'm totally digging what the entire concept. I don't know if the implementation is as good as it could have been, and in some ways, I think that Universal is starting to get to that point where they're in danger of becoming more like Disney, and not necessarily in the woke way. I'm talking about in the risk-averse corporate way, where things start becoming a little bit more sterile and generic, and less innovative, and less risk, more risk-averse. And I am concerned about that, and I see some things that are pointing to this park having some of those elements, and really the Central Hub being them, and even Stardust Racers' lack of really over-the-top theming, some little attention to detail that Disney and Universal really never would have allowed in the past, and that I think Islands of Adventure does a great job of doing and also exposing. Islands of Adventure is very interesting because it does a good job of immersing you in each land while also letting each land kind of flow into the other. So is it weird when you look across the lake and you can see Velocicoaster, the Jurassic Park compound, and Hogwarts? I guess, but it does look amazing, and it doesn't break the immersion of the park for some reason. Epic Universe seems like it's a little bit more reliant in the way that it's built to isolate each one of its lands. So I think that that's something that they could have done a better job of doing. And but it's something that we'll see in the future, right? With how trees grow out if they try to expand the park in certain ways. But I think it's something exciting that you don't get to see too many times in your life, major theme parks being constructed, because it's a huge endeavor. There's a lot of money involved, and it doesn't have the same it doesn't have the same return that it used to have, I don't think. And I think travel is very strange in the world of social media, isn't it? Because in some ways you almost live vicariously, you live so vicariously through so many different people that you start becoming familiar with a place even if you've never been there. And it's simultaneously amazing and a little bit terrible. It kind of kills some of the romance for things. And it's also created, I've seen this with national parks, how COVID had created this weird phenomenon with national parks where people in a lot of places were indoors for, months and almost a year. And so many places were closed for even longer that the few people that were able to go out or that had gone out before, that content became relevant. Everybody was really longing for going to, theme parks and going to national parks and going outdoors to the beach, that a lot of that content started really exploding in the COVID era. Not to mention that everybody's indoors. What the heck are they going to do? They're going to play video games, they're going to watch movies, and they're going to stream YouTube. That's what they're going to do. And that's what a lot of people did. And that's why so many types of content exploded at this time. And you can imagine that once this occurred, everybody wanted to go to these places, or everybody wanted to vlog, and everybody wanted to do that. So you ended up with two different phenomena. Number one is now these places became so popular that it's impossible to go to them on some days, some of the more popular national parks. And then if you do, there's so many people there that you can't enjoy the beauty of nature. It really does feel almost like an artificial tourist trap. And that's why, I've actually enjoyed my time in Puerto Rico just finding spots that nobody knows about. And I haven't even talked about some of them because I'm almost afraid for people to know about them. Because on the one hand, you want to share things so that people will go to this place that you care about and that it can help. But at the same time, you want to keep that pristine nature. And there is nothing like going out somewhere and discovering something that very few people know about. And can that be a little bit greedy and selfish too? But it also maintains that pristine quality that makes so many of these places special. So, I did share the video of, Cañon Blanco that I discovered there in Puerto Rico and Utuado, which is a place I'd never seen before. And I think it's fantastic. And it's a side of Puerto Rico that doesn't really get promoted that much. Oh, and there goes the camera. See, this is something that started happening with this PC. I've got to see why this is occurring. So there I am, my ugly mug right here, just frozen. Okay, I should be good. And there's always that balance of trying to promote things and also keep them hidden gems. And you also just don't want that, all these Instagrammers and content creators and everything like that, they crowd a place and it takes away from the experience. Or they curate things in such a way that you don't know the truth of, hey, it was actually a really long hike to get up here, or it's not as impressive as it looks, or there were a million other people right around me and I made it look like I was the only person on the mountain. No, this is like a crap show up here. It's terrible. And, I think that affects everything that we're going through. And it builds the hype. And it is, it's concerning and it's sad in some ways where, I fear that we're going to end up with a generation of people that are just not impressed by anything. Because you can see everything at your fingertips. When they go out there, they're like, oh yeah, I've already seen this a million times on all these vlogs or things like that. And that kind of sucks. Now, other people will probably be more impressed and amazed by things because they never had the opportunity to go out and see them. But it's a very interesting dichotomy that we're seeing out there. And you can see that with the parks as well, right? Does the hype die down? Are people starting to see through things? It'll be interesting. So if Universal is losing some of that hype, what's going to happen with Disney? And are just trends in entertainment changing? I think it's just the cost is just too much. I think that we've gone to the point where, a trip to Disney was something very special. You would make it a huge event, but it was still within the means of most middle-class families. And then I think they started building the hype internationally, catering to international audiences, increasing prices. Disney started becoming greedy. Then they started becoming lazy and coming out with products that were mediocre on top of being woke. And that imagination just was gone. These custom experiences just became commercialized. And with Disney, you really see it because what were incredible parks that each one was special and had its own unique themes. Magic Kingdom was obviously an expansion on the concept of Disneyland itself and brought a lot of those favorite rides, not initially with like Pirates of the Caribbean, but from Disneyland, and really was the touchstone to expand that vision here. Epcot was trying to portray an optimistic world of the future and of knowledge and science. And it did a great job with that and should have been a constant evolution. That was the park that they could have always innovated and kept educational. You had the International Village, which again educates people, had a lot of different concepts that you could constantly rotate out and expand upon. And, Animal Kingdom, pretty self-explanatory. It's a zoo. And they added a lot of great rides like Everest and unique experiences in their own way of doing things with the safari. And it originally had so much more ambition. And then we started seeing things die down. Now, MGM Studios, as it was called at the time, Hollywood Studios today, was a shot to try to undercut Universal. So it wasn't anything crazy right there. But it served its purpose too, right? It was the movie IP park that you could throw all that stuff in there, and it wasn't a problem. Now Disney is basically turning every park into Magic Kingdom. That's it. And then they're taking what makes Magic Kingdom and they're going to gut it and destroy it and turn it into a commercialized shell of what it's supposed to be, instead of keeping it as almost a museum piece. And that's what Disney doesn't understand. People want the old rides. They want the nostalgia. They want all of that. That's what makes it beautiful. And Disney's celebration of America and American exceptionalism and the patriotism there, and bringing, fanciful worlds and attention to detail. So it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that they've lost their way and they become generic, commercialized pieces of just merchandising. And I think that, Universal had an opportunity to really take that away from them. And I think they've achieved a lot of that. And but we'll see if they are able to go all the way. Time will tell where Epic Universe ranks in the annals of park history and how the park grows in the future. And I'm excited to see it. I'm also excited to see what Universal does with their other two parks. But we also have to see where the industry goes and how it's changing. There are a lot of great parks throughout the world now that are world class. Many of them have rides that are just as good or better than anything that Universal and Disney have. So they can't rest on their laurels, and that means that international tourism is going to wane, and people are not necessarily going to travel halfway across the world to see something that they now can find in their backyard. So I think they've got to go back to that romance and that era of really innovating and handcrafting those experiences and creating something absolutely special. Will they, or are they just going to keep going with like focus groups and do sterile corporate basic theme stuff or things that are cool and hip? I don't know. Maybe they will. I think social media is also terrible when it comes to this stuff. People get bored all the time. And again, you live vicariously through other people. It's almost like people feel like they don't have to travel anymore and see these things for themselves, which is just terribly boring if you think about it. So I hope it does well, because I do want to see the competition reignite here. I think that a sign of American success too is seeing our entertainment industries do well. And theme parks really are the most American thing that you've got. Getting excited for the summer, having a road trip and going to, Six Flags, Cedar Point, Disney World, Universal, wherever park you're going to. That's really what it was all about. And those are the best memories that I had growing up, was just getting in the car and road tripping. Going out camping is fantastic as well. So you let one hand stand up to us and they will all stand up to us as true patriot from Warsaw. I did hear a little bit about that story in Buffalo and what the school board is covering. I know that, donut operator and Fat Electrician, those guys, I forgot what their podcast is called, really blew the door open on that. I need to watch that more. I did not get the opportunity to watch the podcast. I've been pretty busy with things because I'm here to kind of do work and empty things out, get rid of stuff, and clean house before I head back to Puerto Rico. So, man, what is up with this camera right here? Is this thing like overheating on me? It almost feels like it is. So, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. This is a new setup as far as my workstation is concerned. So, it seems like it's not liking the way that this camera is. So, but I'm not surprised. Yeah, I'm not surprised that something like that would happen in New York with all the DEI and the things they cover up, the egregious immigration laws and things that have occurred in New York City. Buffalo, northern New York is a little bit more conservative, but this happens in every city, right? Every city council has their dirty secret. Schools are like this. This is why you have to be involved as a parent. You really do. And I think it is a shame kind of how the society that we live in a lot of ways is designed to destroy families when you think about it. Because, and look, I'm not saying that men and women can't both work, but you got to be involved in your kids' lives, and having two parents in the household is great. So we do need to strive to have, good marriages and have, good relations between men and women, and try to repair all of that. And our society has really just tried to rip that apart. And I mean, having households where you have to have two sources of income and both parents have to work, that sucks too. You don't have as much time to be able to pay attention to these things, but this is the effort that we need to make. We have to join our school boards. We have to go to these meetings. If you're a parent, you have to be involved in all this stuff. You got to talk to your kids. You got to talk to other parents. You have to volunteer in schools if you can. You really do, because we are signing away our sovereignty as parents, and we're not protecting our kids if we're not involved. And I get it. I understand. At the end of the day, everybody's tired. I get it. Look, I was in I never had children, but I get it. I was married at one point, and both people working. You don't have as much time, and at the end of the day, you don't want to do much. You want to spend time with each other and do your own thing and spend time with friends, or you got to clean the house and you got to do all this stuff. And it can be tough when having kids and pets and other things you have to do. It feels like you don't have time for anything, but this is life. Life is difficult. And the reason why so much of our society is falling apart, why politicians have been able to take advantage of things, why children have been corrupted, it is because we have become derelict in our duty. Some of it is by design. Some of it is that they want to take away our time from us. But in other ways, it is laziness of parents. I know that both of my parents did what they could to get involved as much as they could. Whether it was reading books to us when we were kids before we started going to school at night, getting involved in sports, going to the school board meetings, going back and forth. My old man was in the military, so he was deployed a lot, but when he retired, he got involved in ways that he could. You have to make the effort, and it can be difficult. In some cases, it could be almost impossible, but I do think that, look, it's the same thing that we always say, right? And as conservatives, we push back against abortion, but that means that we're telling people they've got to have kids, so they've got to be responsible. And we do have to have empathy for that. Maybe some people, it's tough for them to have kids. Maybe they shouldn't even have kids in the first place. But if you're going to do it, you got to do it the best that you can, and you have to get involved as much as you can. And that means sacrificing some fun things that you may want to do and go to boring ass meetings and deal with people who are a pain in the ass that you don't like. But those are people that you don't like that talk to your kids every day. and many of them are involved in your kids' lives more than you will be ever, especially when they are actual children. And when you think about that, that's pretty crazy, isn't it? Because kids are in school like 7 or 8 hours a day, and that's most of the waking hours. Yeah, because they're at home the rest of the day most of the time, but you're at work at that time. Then you get home from work, you're probably tired. Then what? Kids get home, you get home work from 5, you got dinner 5, 6, 7 o'clock. Then your kids are going to bed at 8, 9, 10, depending on their ages. And then that's it, and they're done, and you're up with your wife or husband, depending on who you are, and you've got a couple of hours together maybe, and that's it. You don't have time. So these people have major influence, so you have to get involved. You have to know what they're doing. So it's crazy. So this is something that, it requires a sacrifice, but we can't have it. We can't have it both ways. We can't have it all. So yes, if we're going to have kids, if people have to have kids, then we have to get involved in schools. That means dealing with people that we don't like, but it's also our way of protecting them, because you will expose more and more things like this the more that you're involved in these schools. And you can't allow all these weirdos, these losers, these sick people to infiltrate these institutions and take control and influence our kids, and either brainwash and corrupt them to turn them into insane, entitled monsters when they get older that will not be effective members of society, or they will abuse and take away their innocence and do heinous and horrible things to them, and possibly traffic them. So these are the things that we have to get involved in. We have to have skin in the game, and there's really no excuse for any of it. And this is where, I've always said this is where conservatives have to change what we do. And we are always freedom-minded. We want less and less government. Yes, I get it. But the government's not going to go away. And if you want to dismantle government, you have to become a part of the government to enact rules and regulations to take away government's power, and to also make sure that it is being run in an honorable and moralistic fashion. So if you rely on other people, if you outsource your power, then you have no control over it. And I get it, that's what government is for, but we do have to at least pay attention to what is going on in our society. And I think that is something that we that we have been derelict on for a long time. So we got to get involved at every level, from the HOA to the city council, to the school board, to our state and federal government. We've got to get involved in all of it. We have to pay attention to all of it. It sucks. It's not fun, but that's what being an adult is about. It's doing the hard things that nobody wants to do, and that just comes with the territory, right? When you have that kind of freedom, you do have a responsibility to maintain it. And if you don't, you can't complain when other people throw rules in your face. So there's no other way around it. And you've got to be ready to expose it, and you got to be ready to fight all this stuff. And I think that even going to the larger first 100 days of Trump's administration, I think that those are the things that we also have to realize, that once you're in it, then you realize how the sausage is actually produced. And I think that Michael Francisi is fantastic. He's definitely a good listen. He's a former mafioso, went to prison, and he's reformed. He's a born again Christian now too. And so he's definitely an interesting listen. So I agree with you, Good Wrench. And this is again where I always go: is it too late? Is what Trump is doing And this is why we have to give him a chance, right? But there's a possibility that we're just toast, right? We've printed too much money. We've gotten involved in too many foreign wars. We've fucked up too many things along the way. We've pissed off too many people, and we've undermined ourselves too much. Is it possible that there is no hope? Because look, we have to be realistic. If we look in history, there's not always a good guys, bad guys thing. We would like to say that we're the good guys, but we found out that our government has been the bad guys in a lot of this stuff. And that a lot of things are propaganda, and that, you know, our government has used our military to do horrible things throughout the world for more than 100 years, and governments before us did the same thing. So who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? That is more difficult to discern every day. I know the guys who are really evil, and I know people who are also just plain old greedy. But they're all willing to do the same evil things, which is destroy people's lives, either physically or financially, and steal their property. So either for, religious, financial, or just sadistic reasons. Those are the things that kind of drive all of this stuff. And we're never gonna escape any of that. So can we mitigate the damage? I hope so. Do we even have enough time? Does Trump have enough time in 3 years that he's got left, essentially, to do this? And really even shorter, because if he loses the midterm elections and the Democrats take over, he's a lame duck for 2 years. He's not going to get anything done. So we really don't have much time. And he has to do well enough, or at least turn things. You're not going to turn things all the way, right? It's too much. We're going against over 100 years of a bureaucratic state that has all of the force of globalism behind it. That's just not going to turn around in 3 or 4 years. It's not going to happen. You're not even going to be able to expose all of it. And that means that there's also going to be a lot of collateral damage. So there are innocent people, so to speak, that are going to get affected by a lot of these cuts. I'm sure that there are a lot of good programs that never should have been cut, that were slashed by Doge. I'm sure that there's good expertise within the government of people that got fired or quit who maybe didn't have to, who would have been good people to keep around. And yeah, there's going to be some damage. There's no doubt about that. I'm sure there's good programs that helped, the poor and all of that. Maybe even things in the military. You name it, it's probably out there. Something that's gone on that's like, man, that's something that we really could have used, but it's gone. So we will see, but there's no doubt that things have to happen, and it's going to take more than Trump's term. We're going to need a President J.D. Vance after this, but we need to be left at a point where people can see the writing on the wall. They see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, and they have hope. And I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what will be enough for people. And I don't know if, are we too spoiled? Are we too weak? Is there just too much that we're coupled with the rest of the world that can America be self-sufficient? I've got no doubt about it. We've got all the natural resources we need. We have all the expertise that we need. And we have a geographic advantage that no other nation has, with access to the Atlantic and the Pacific, with only 2 countries next to us that are fairly, not horrendous countries that are at war all the time. And we can question what happened in Canada with their election recently, which is disastrous. And I think that we're going to see more and more things like that. I mean, look, the West is in serious trouble. There's no doubt about that at all. I think Canada completely wiping out the conservatives. Well, I mean, not completely wiping out, but doubling down on their left-wing politics after the disaster that was Trudeau just shows that it's possible that that's it. The ship has sailed. that you can't vote your way out of some of these holes. They're done. And it's when they use language as a weapon, that's really it's been a huge change in the rule set, right? So you're seeing it in Germany now with the ruling party trying to declare AfD as an extremist party. So, and then that will restrict their abilities, as far as speech and advertising, things like that. That's a huge authoritarian move on their part. So you're seeing more and more of a shift and a crushing of populist and right-wing ideologies. And those are the ideologies that are ultimately going to protect a lot of these countries. And I don't know, I don't know if that's reversible. I don't know if the U.S. in the end, we're just going to have to turn on everybody and everybody's going to become our enemies. So I don't know. I don't know enough about Canada, Forgotten Man, and I don't know how things work nowadays because there is no time in history. And I mean, look at even the Roman Empire. I think that a society can be so weak that it almost goes out in a whimper, right? Where, look, I was one of those guys that was running around and I wasn't sure how things were going to play out, if there was going to be a civil war or something like that. Now I really don't know because I'm so surprised at how the rest of the West has reacted to the way that the Trump administration has done things. That I really don't know. I don't know if there are enough people in other countries that really care, or if they're so afraid to stand up to things now that they just kind of accept it. And I think part of it is that despite the fact that the world is becoming more and more authoritarian, and the fact that in many ways we're starting to see our standards of living go down, but in other ways we have more than we've ever had before. So people can't buy houses, they don't own land, it's harder to buy cars, but they can get anything that they want at any time. In some cases, they can get it in an hour. And so, and we can communicate with people everywhere in the world. We have platforms like this right now. So we're more connected than ever, yet we've got like a loneliness epidemic too. We live in a very bizarre time in history that really is a world of contradictions. So I don't know if anybody can predict anything that's going on right now. Things that would have caused revolutions in the past. I mean, look, it was years in the making, but the American Revolution had to do with issues that honestly are more trivial than what a lot of the things that we deal with today. But that was enough to get people riled up to raise arms against the most powerful nation that had ever existed at that time. So I think that a lot of these things are different than they were before, and it's a shock. I think that what we're going through is a shock to the system, right? Because people have been in this stupor for so long that they don't know how society works anymore and how the real world is. So I think we're going through a shock in the system. I think that ultimately this is something that we have to go through, and I think it will be for the better. But there is a power struggle going on right now, and a lot of people are going to be very uncomfortable with the fact that they're going to have to accept less for a while. We're actually going to have to be conservative people. Like we have to be content doing simple things. And maybe this will be better for society too, right? We do have to go out and touch grass. Now, economically, it's going to be different because I think our economy has been so dependent on constant, massive growth. It's not just good enough to have profits. You have to have massive growth. And I just feel like that's entirely unsustainable. And you end up with a society that we promoted corporatism and people buying more and more and more. yet we promoted them doing things that result in less and less customers. So it was all short-sighted, right? Now, I understand, look, women have every right to work and to vote and to do all that stuff, but there's consequences to women working, right? And then having a society where both men and women have to work. Like, people are just going to have less kids. And that's not, even if we're not promoting like extreme feminism or anything like that, like that's just a natural result. Like, you don't have to tell people that, like, oh, you don't have to be one of these horrible left-wing feminists that says being a housewife is terrible. Yeah, you can take all that away and just look at logically. It's like, well, if both parents are working, it's going to be really hard to have kids. So that's going to result in less people, and eventually that's going to result in a smaller population, and you're going to have less customers. I mean, that's just a realistic outcome of that. So, and you also have less people at home all the time. Yes, you've got more income, but people are working more, so they have less time for leisure and to buy things. Whereas in the past, if you had like a spouse at home, like they're going to buy things to make the house nicer. They're going to do more stuff around there. They're going to get involved in the local economy because they've got to do stuff, get more involved with their kids. That leads to sports, that improves the schools and all these things. Like, this is just logical. This is just a logical explanation for things, right? So I think that this is just a logical outcome. And again, I got no problem with that. There's a lot of women that work and they do a great job and they can still go home and do that. You have to delineate things, right? Like, you can make it work with parents. But I'm just talking about that in general. Some of these are just like logical outcomes. Like, these things are going to happen, and there are second and third order effects that affect all this stuff. Because now, on the other hand, too, you end up with now more sources of income, right? Because women have their own money, so they can buy their own things too. You can cater to both. Even a lot of the gender dysphoria bullshit. Like, do you think that most corporations believed all the trans stuff? No, it was pure greed. Makeup companies. Do you think makeup companies give a crap about men wearing makeup or anything like that, or promoting men identifying as women? No, they look to themselves and they're like, we can double our profits because now dudes are going to buy makeup too. Or even men's clothing companies, like, hey, now we can cater to these trans men, these women that are dressing, and sell it to them. So that was pure corporate greed that was affected by like cultural outcomes. But that's where it was. If you think that they actually cared, no, they didn't give a crap about any of that stuff. So, but we ended up with all this impulsivity and buying things and corporate nonsense that people don't care about. And it's like, you know what? We got to go back to the basics, man. We got to go back to caring about families. We've got to be more responsible. We have to be more involved. And, it's crazy. And yes, the stock market and the way that corporations work and all that stuff, it's bullshit, because we have an economy that runs completely on theoretical crap. And that's why crypto doesn't even bother me like it does a lot of people, because people would be like, oh, crypto, you're investing in nothing. You invest in nothing every day. Do you think that your 401k is real? Do you think stocks and all this stuff is real? If you don't have fiat currency, it's all bullshit anyway. It is. It's all bullshit. So if anything, crypto might be a little bit better because it's a little bit more secure as far as digital assets are concerned. Whereas your bank, like, somebody gets your password, you're toast. Like, crypto has more security measures, but it's all the same crap. There's no physical asset backing it up. Is there gold in Fort Knox? I don't know. We're off the gold standard anyway. It doesn't matter. So if you don't have gold bricks in your closet that back up all your assets or physical property, like, you're toast. If the bank blows up, or if there's an EMP and the internet says it's all gone, that's just as worthless as the crypto that you've got too. So your bank account that says you've got like $100,000 or something like that, your 401k with, $500,000, couple $1 million. That's all bullshit. Your stocks, your options, your bonds, it's all crap. It's all bullshit. It doesn't exist. Nobody's got, if you don't have the physical asset right there, it is all crap. The same way as crypto, the same way as anything else. That's why the Fed printing out money is garbage. It is all done. It is all absolutely done. So it's just crazy. It's crazy to me how people put their faith in all that stuff. But that's how it's always been, right? It's always been that way. But now we have even less to show for it. So everybody's going crazy with all this stuff. And that's what controls things. We don't have physical assets. We don't have, people don't build things that are quality anymore. And we are reaping the consequences of all of that right now. And it just goes into everything. And this is the ugly side of capitalism the way that it is today. It's really commercialism and corporatism, right? And it's true. Having investor-driven companies rather than employee-driven companies is a terrible thing. We've seen this in the quality of everything. I think one of the best examples in modern history where we can see this, well, we spoke about one for almost half the show, which was Disney, of course. But I think that Boeing is a fantastic example of this. Whereas Boeing for decades was an engineering first company. It was a company founded by engineers and run by engineers. And that was reflected in the quality of their products and the innovative products that they created for decades. Then you had McDonnell Douglas, which was a much more corporate driven company, the Jack Welch type of company. And when they merged, they essentially took Boeing's portfolio of products, which McDonnell Douglas was the company that was falling apart. That's the crazy part. So the company that was falling apart merged with the more successful company, and they decided to take the corporate, what would you say, atmosphere, or the corporate culture, I should say, from the company that failed and put it in charge of the successful company that was an engineering first company. So you ended up with a corporatized Boeing that only cared about, reorganization and synergy and all these corporate bullshit buzzwords, and making as much money as possible with the maximum efficiency instead of trying to create really good quality and innovative products. And ever since then, Boeing has been slowly falling apart. And if building planes wasn't such a difficult and intensive industry, then I think you would have seen Boeing fall apart a long time ago. But they almost have to survive with the way that things are. But you just see it in the way that they've cut costs with removing systems from aircraft. I mean, the 737 MAX debacle is the perfect example of that. And even trying to take the 737 design, which is 60 years old, and to try to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, was just laziness on Boeing's part and trying to do cost-cutting measures. So I think I agree with you, Good Wrench. I do. Look, we have to bring innovation back to the United States. That's going to be expensive. I think certain types of manufacturing we're just never going to get back. And again, I think this is a cultural thing too. I think that because television started it, the internet really took it to the next level, is that we live in such a keeping up with the Joneses society that people see many things as beneath them. So do enough Americans want to work in factories? Do they want to work on farms? Do they want to do all this stuff? Because look, as we do get rid of, a lot of the illegals in this country, a lot of them do jobs that a lot of Americans don't like. Those are jobs that are not going to go away. And they're jobs that are important, right? We do need people working on the farms and picking crops and doing things like that. But that is tough extremely tough labor. So are Americans going to get that? No. So that's not necessarily going to help. I think that a lot of that's going to go to robots and industrial equipment, or they'll reorganize the way that the visa system is again, and they'll have migrant workers come back. It'll just be a much more regulated industry. But again, the prices are still going to go up as a result of that. So, but yeah, as far as technology and things like that, absolutely. There's no reason why, unless you can show me that Americans aren't getting engineering degrees, there's no reason why we should be hiring people from India and China on student visas just so that we pay them like half. That's bullshit. No. Unless you can really show me that there is nobody graduating with those degrees, which I don't believe at all, because I got my degree is in engineering, and then I ended up working in the tech industry and all that stuff and doing YouTube. But yeah, technically I got a degree in electrical engineering, and there were a lot of people that graduated when I did many moons ago. Well, not that many moons ago, but still within the modern era that were not foreign born. And a lot of them ended up working at Lockheed Martin, NASA, and a lot of other fantastic corporations, GE, all of those. Name a big engineering firm, and I know somebody that worked there. But we need to bring back a lot of that stuff, but that's going to take years. It's going to take many, many years, because these factories don't get constructed overnight, and we're going to see a lot of innovations along the way. So some of those jobs are going to be totally different in the way that they are, that they come back. Some of them will never come back again. But there's still a lot more that we need to do. We still need to expand housing in this country. I think that people want to buy houses, but we need more housing that's actually affordable. And I don't mean affordable housing in the government sense where we build projects. I mean that a normal middle-class family with one income can afford a decent single-family home, like a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, at least something like that is what we should strive for people to have, with a little bit of land that they have as their own. And I think that that's the American dream. So, and we have to bring back a lot of that innovation. We can't allow these jobs to be outsourced. We have to be the leading cause. And this helps with our national security, right? I mean, we've always had an advanced military. We don't have to be the world's police, but that doesn't mean that we can't be the top dogs. And if anything, as we do reduce our role in being the world's policeman, it will behoove us to have a self-sufficient and technologically advanced military, because we are going to be more defensive. So in order to keep people from messing with us, we're going to have the top stuff. But we don't have to have crazy power projection, global security technology. But there will be a loss of some of our sovereignty and prestige. Like, I don't think being the superpower means that we are the superpower because of the things that we do. So if we reduce some of the things that we do, yes, it may be better for us as the American people in some ways, but we will lose our superpower status. And I don't think that we can have both, because right now, whether we like it or not, I know we always ballyhoo about one world currency. The US dollar is the one world currency. By us trying to become a little bit more multipolar when it comes to global security, that means that there is going to be competition for the US dollar. There is, the likes of which that we haven't seen in decades. So that's going to change things. But if we have more American-made products, then prices may not be affected the same way, but it may be international products will always be a little bit more expensive because the dollar is not going to be, tied to that. But yeah, we do. Look, the globalism has been bad too, and this is where corporatism is bad because, again, there's no skin in the game, right? When you have a corporation that they can just leave and offshore everywhere, and their corporate offices are in another country, they don't care about the people that are around them. Again, going back to Boeing, they moved their corporate office from Seattle to, I think, the middle of the country. Was it Omaha or something like that? I believe. So far away from where the factories actually were. And so you ended up with corporate leadership not having any sort of relation with what their workers were doing and the product that they were producing. They were completely detached, and you can't have that. You have to have an actual personal investment. The best companies run that way. They all become these bland shells of nothingness, and you can see it in the aesthetic of the world. And that's what people don't understand. And that's why I think what we're going through is such a unique time in society, because when you think about it, and I know some of the more boomer cons are going to get mad about this, but it's true, is we are living in a society where we young conservatives, we value capitalism and we love capitalism, but we don't like corporatism, and we do value art and things that are of quality and that have beauty to them. Whereas I think for a long time, the neocons, they didn't care about art. They didn't care about those things. They didn't care about entertainment. Everything was so purely about work and maximizing work. And yes, it doesn't mean that we're lazy or anything like that, but we've got a little bit more of the soul of humanity. And I think that that's where, liberals, that's why they call it the liberal arts, were superior. And that's why they won so many hearts and minds, right? Because they catered to art and entertainment. So now we have a new breed of conservatism that cares much more about art and entertainment than we ever did before. And so we're trying to balance all these things out, and to have that work-life balance where we don't necessarily, it's not all about the rat race and chasing everything to the ends of the earth and profit. Yes, we do want that. We do want to make money. We want to have our investments, but we also want to improve ourselves. So it's a balancing act ultimately. But we are going to have to work harder, because there are a lot of mundane jobs that people don't want. Now, some of them are going to be eliminated by AI. I have had conversations with Grok that are ridiculous. And if you ask questions a certain way, it will answer it better than any person can without any ambiguity. And it's an extremely powerful tool, and it is going to be so helpful and so disruptive at the same time. Because I can already see so many industries that are going to be absolutely useless. Like, I actually do think that phone receptionists and all that stuff, especially when it comes to looking up records, that's going to be entirely decimated. I really do. I think that a lot of phone support for very specific things is going to be wiped out. I think it can answer account questions, things like that, better than the person. It won't mess up. And even if it does, it probably will do so at a rate that's less than somebody that you're paying minimum wage that hates their job because it's so boring. And the AI is not going to care. It's not going to get bored. It's not going to mess that up. So there's just a lot of things that are going to go away, and that robots will eventually take some of them. Will there be new industries that pop up? Absolutely. I mean, look, what we're doing right here, right now, being a podcaster, that's an industry that didn't exist before. So there will be things that pop up, but at the same time, we're seeing a shift in so many different things, right? Because I think that the creator influencer economy, which is terrible, I think that that's going through an upheaval right now as well, because we're really seeing the first generation of all of this type of internet economy kind of become mainstream and now go through its first bust period. People have been exposed more than ever. People are maturing on this kind of stuff. The landscape of it is shifting. We saw celebrities like actors and actresses, all of that changed, and it readily became kind of like YouTube celebrities. And now that's all stabilizing because there's so many more people that can do all of this, that it's a constantly shifting landscape where there's always somebody new that can pop up on the horizon that's going to do something different and more innovative, or just in a way that catches on with that. There are a lot of AI YouTube videos as well. So But at the same time, we're seeing people get lonely, and they want to go away from that isolated society. So COVID affected a lot of this, and it stunted a lot of people's social growth at a critical time in their lives. At the same time, I think that there is a desire for that, a nostalgia for it. So we're going to see a weird shift where our technology is going to make us capable of being more antisocial than ever. But I think that people are starting to have that desire for a social landscape again. But rules are going to have to change because we're just in such a crazy realm, because we're dealing with the repercussions of wokeness and radical feminism. So gender dynamics are all jacked up right now between men and women. You know, people can get called out for like sexual assault or harassment or anything, and false accusations. So we live in a really jacked up world when it comes to that. So we're going to have to see a reset on all of those things. But I think we're seeing a desire with that from both men and women. If you pay attention to, you know, kind of the dating space or whatever you want to call that. I don't know what to say. So there's a lot of weird dynamics at play now that we've been dealing with decades of the social experimentation that we've been doing. So I think the dust is starting to settle, and we're going to figure things out, but this is going to be constantly evolving. And we're going to have to deal with the repercussions of the entire transgender experiment and fiasco for decades too. We have thousands of people who were mutilated and permanently damaged. And are we going to see major class action lawsuits against doctors? Are we going to see people go to prison for this eventually? We're going to have a lot of people that are damaged, that are victims of all of this, right? They were brainwashed to believe that by removing major bodily organs, that would make them something that they're not, but really it made them have a permanent disability and a reliance on, medications for the rest of their lives, and took away their ability to have children in the future in many of these people's cases. And that's awful. And there's going to be a reckoning for all of this. And we need to learn from that so that it never happens again. But we're still in the middle of it, so we're going to have to deal with it in the long term. And it's going to suck. So it really is a strange time to be alive. It is a very strange time to be alive. And I don't know. I really don't know where this goes. I don't know. And I think that everything over the last few years has gone in a way that I never could have predicted. And I think most of us could not have predicted. So will we end up in a world of cyberpunk anarchy? Will it be extreme authoritarianism? Will it be the Matrix? Will it be a utopian society, or will it be like WALL-E, where it's almost like a fun dystopia where we're all just fat and happy, but we live lives of nothingness and no meaningfulness? I don't know. Or will AI try to take over? We have a revolution against them, and then we become Luddites and get rid of all technology, or go back to analog stuff like Galactica. So that's really where things are going. I agree with that, Socrates Magoat. I think that becoming Christian has helped me a lot. And I think we've seen a revival too. I've seen more and more young people than ever go to the church, whether that's, Protestant or Catholic churches. We're seeing a huge revival with that. I think you're seeing it with the Catholic and Orthodox churches as well. Big time. People have a sense, they have a desire for nostalgia and for the truths of the universe, really. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for that foundation, because we live in such a world of decadence and meaninglessness, where it's true, you can have almost anything that you want. You can do almost anything that you can do, or you can live vicariously through others. And it almost breeds this sense of boredom and lack of purpose and meaninglessness. And And you can only fill that up with faith and having a higher purpose. And I know that there's going to be people that say, well, I don't need any of that stuff. And I was like, well, that's great. Like if you're content, but I understand why a lot of people are looking for that. Now, I've always been a believer. I've just gone back to that, to deal with, the losses that I've had over the last, a couple of years. And so it's that desire for permanence in the community that the church gives you. So it's interesting. It's interesting how that all is, but I think going back to the basics and simplicity, I think that there's a longing for that, right? And that sense of community. And I can say, look, even me going back to Puerto Rico has totally changed my perspective on things because I'm outdoors all the time. I've had times where the power's been out for like a couple of days, and except for it getting hot, like that's really the problem. It's really not that bad. You just go outside and you walk around, you go to the beach, and things are simple. People are nicer there. I go out in nature. I can't order things on Amazon and have them be here the next day. It takes like a week and a half. And it actually makes me a little bit less impulsive. I have so much less stuff that I had. I accumulated so many things from so many years. And, when you get married too, you accumulate things that you build up with another person. And then so much of even streaming and having stuff, look, we all have our cool setups. We all have those things that we love to collect. And, I love that. I loved having the studio that I used to have and all that, but so much of that stuff I packed up after everything that happened, and I haven't messed with it for like a year and a half. And then I went to Puerto Rico and I only went with like one suitcase of stuff because I thought I was going to be there for 3 weeks. And I ended up being there for almost 4 or 5 months. And I realized so many of the things that I don't really need and how I could live minimally. And it was more about the things that I was doing rather than the things that I had. And that sounds so hokey and like Hallmark card, but it's absolutely true. It is so much simpler when you don't care about having everything and just experiencing life. And that's kind of the life that I've wanted to live. And I think a lot of people are feeling that way. Mandatory blackout days. Here we go. Wait, that's just the purge crap. Rolo has his kid. I got the cats. So, which I miss my cats very much right now. I'll have been without them for a month by the time I get back, and it's going to be terrible. They're going to be like, what the hell happened with you? Like, who are you? Rolo redneck confirmed. The Puerto Rican redneck. Yeah, bullseyeing freaking tarantulas and rats. That's what I'm going to be doing. That's pretty much what I'm dealing with all the time. It's tarantulas and mice. So I agree. I look, I think that there is a reprieve. I think that, you guys know that I think that President Trump there was divine intervention that saved President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, and against everything that's happened with him. So I'm not saying that he's a messiah or a perfect figure, not at all. And I think that anybody that believes that or that's a sycophant and that would follow him blindly is a fool. There's no mortal man that should be that way. But we do know that in almost every story in the scripture, the Lord has elevated either humble or even wicked men to greater purposes. I think that Paul, formerly Saul of Tarsus, is one of the greatest examples of that as a member, a man who grew up being the Hebrew of Hebrews, as he would call himself, and, helped in stoning Simon, the first martyr, and persecuting early Christians, and then he himself becoming the Christian of Christians and being persecuted and spreading the gospel through all corners of the Mediterranean and writing the book of Acts and most of the New Testament. That shows you a lot about how a person can change and how they can be used by the Lord in mysterious ways. And if anything, that's kind of the example of what Christianity is all about, right? It's the grace of God and how even the most wicked and evil person can redeem themselves and do good for others, and spread the good message of Jesus Christ. So, I mean, it can happen. So I think Trump has an opportunity to do that, but I think it's a reprieve. And I think at the end of the day, the world is what it is, right? It's a fallen world. Humans can be evil and greedy, and we're never going to be perfect. So we're going to deal with things as long as this planet exists the way that it does, and as long as we're on it. So we just have to do our best and try to live the best lives that we can, and look out for one another, and try to be good human beings. That's really what it amounts to. So I can start with that travel vlog that I've been dreaming of. Yeah, I know, and I've got it there too. It really just comes down to editing. Well, that's why I downsized or microsized this rig over here with the camera that's not working as well. So I got to troubleshoot that. I think the capture card's just getting really hot on that USB port. So I got to change the way that is. But that's dealing with a micro-sized computer now, right? Heating is always an issue. So, but yeah, I'll definitely be going on adventures in Puerto Rico and exploring those things and giving a different perspective. And I do want to even learn more about, Puerto Rico and even geek culture there. Had I not come back this week, it's almost too bad, because Puerto Rico was going to have a Comic-Con in San Juan there. And it wasn't anything huge. I think Elijah Wood was the biggest guest. They only had like 4 celebrities. I think Troy Baker was another one as far as a voice actor. But I thought it would be really interesting to look at geek and nerd culture in Puerto Rico. I know anime is huge there as well. And I would love to have seen that. I think that would have been really cool to vlog and film that and see how that would have grown. And maybe that would have been an event that exploded. And I mean, Puerto Rico, the largest population of Puerto Ricans outside of Puerto Rico at this point is in Florida. It's not New York anymore. And in Florida, Central Florida is the biggest spot. I mean, there were Puerto Ricans everywhere when I lived there. Puerto Rican restaurants, Puerto Rican flags, Puerto Rican people. Yeah, the cam link does get toasty. Yeah, it does. That's what I'm using right now. And usually I do have an extended on USB extension, but I've got it plugged directly in right now. So I think that what's going on with it is that it's probably overheating a bit. So you have a pretty good Gunpla building group in PR. What's Gunpla? Or is that a typo? Oh, let me know. If you guys are ever there, drop me a line. Maybe we can have a Puerto Rican meetup one day of people there. And we'll meet in the capital and we'll go on like a rum tour, and we'll go hike in the rainforest. We'll get everyone out of the house. That's all right. See, I've been getting a tan too. I was walking 10 miles a day every day up until like a couple of days ago. Then Oblivion completely wrecked it. The mic is doing well, yeah, and I expect the mic to do well. That's gonna be the great stuff. Playing with model kits like Gundam and stuff. Oh, that's cool. Gundam playing build. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, I'd love to check out all that stuff, the nerd culture there, and obviously do more outdoor stuff. I'm going to try to take my modular kayak there, because that's the whole point of having it, that I can take it on a plane. And if there's anywhere that you can kayak, it's in Puerto Rico, and it'll be more convenient because I don't have my pickup truck there. It's going to be staying here. So because moving your vehicle over to Puerto Rico, it's not the shipping that's expensive. It's that registering it there. They've got like taxes and all this stuff. So if I ended up making it permanent, then I would move my truck there. So we'll see. But I got like a little SUV there. I got the beater. It'll become famous in its own right at some point, I'm sure. And I'm sure that I'll have to fix it in some ways and get really, really good mechanically inclined again. Even though I was used to work on my cars all the time with Mustangs and Mazdas. back in the day. So even though my truck now is really easy to work on and it's bulletproof, and that's how Toyotas are. So they've got some heat sinks on for the cam link. That's something I'll have to look into then. So, but I mean, I've had it for years and it's worked fine. I think it is just this this mini ITX case and how hot it gets compared to the larger case that I had. This build has been pretty good. I've got a video actually that I'm working on that I will give you guys some behind the scenes stuff. This show has just turned into everything. But this is what I've always wanted to do with it. Flying, where are you from, Forgotten Man? I think the easiest way to fly to Puerto Rico is to either go from South Florida or Orlando. That's where you're going to get most of your flights. From there, I mean, you can get round trips with JetBlue sometimes for less than $300. Easy. Especially if you're not carrying luggage and all that stuff. $200 or $300, depending on the time of the year, is not out of the realm of possibility with taxes and everything. Utah, that would probably be more. It would just be like if you can get to Orlando, tack another like $250, $300 on it, and that's pretty much it. Orlando or Miami will be your two biggest hubs that you can probably get direct flights from. Maybe even Fort Lauderdale. They offer different flights to different parts of the island. You can walk that. Absolutely, you can walk it. And from Florida, it's like a 2.5 hour flight. 2.5 hours from either Orlando or Miami. It's not that much further from Orlando. And it's easy to hop, skip, and a jump. Like I said, US dollar everywhere. It is part of the US. So you're going to find American franchises. Pretty much everyone understands English, even though everyone speaks Spanish. So, you can go New York to Ponce. So there you go. Walking is doable. If you haven't already, check out Bosque Torro Negro. It straddles Orocovis, Ponce, Jayuya, and some other municipalities in the Cordillera. I'll have to check that out. There are a lot of... I have been a huge proponent, and I've been trying to find a lot of local spots. There are a few waterfalls that I've discovered that are not in the usual maps. I'm going to do a lot more of that kind of stuff, and I'm going to have more of the equipment to do so. I'm probably going to take... I have most of my camera equipment there. I have to watch out what I'm going to take now because I've got the one carry-on that's probably going to be my kayak. So now I'm restricted. I've got to bring this rig here. And I came kind of minimalist. I'm going to need some of my survival gear because if there's a hurricane there, I'm going to get hosed. So I'm going to need some of my camping gear to survive depending on how bad things are. Hopefully we don't get something like Maria again. I'm not too worried about physically getting destroyed because the farmhouse has been around forever and it survived everything. So that's bulletproof. The apartment is newer. It did survive Maria as well with minimal harm, but that would be a little bit less proven. But it is an elevated position, so I'm not worried about flooding or anything like that in either place or mudslides as far as that. But power, that's a different story. So solar power is an objective that we've got long-term for the properties there. I'm going to have some stuff doing that. I can go kayaking on the water reservoirs like Cerrilleros. You can go upstream all the way to the waterfall. I did check out that huge... I'll go ahead and show it. Like at this point, this is just, an impromptu show, guys. You guys know how I do things here. Rolo's Rants. I'm just ranting and raving about everything these days. So whether it's guns, entertainment, news, this has just become more of a free-form show, which actually that's what I've always liked. This is what I enjoy doing. So the rants are always a little bit impromptu. So... And maybe we can do different types. And with the camera going off because of this, which I'll figure it out this week. We'll do another gaming stream this week in the middle of the week. and move it forward. I know I keep saying that, but it's the problem is that Oblivion has just completely just gotten me obsessed. I've become totally obsessed with Oblivion. Okay, so let's bring up my other channel here, which is Roaming with Rolo, and I'll show you.
I'm gonna come.
That's not what. That's not what I meant to do. Oh, naughty Trump. Naughty. So let's switch to Roaming with Rolo. If you have not checked it out, go ahead and do so. There will be more content here. I've got a huge vlog. The problem is I think it's like 2 hours of video almost that I really have to edit down of myself, Camo and Commander hiking through Cañón Blanco over here. But it obviously don't have it here right now. Okay, where's the cam link? I don't know where I am. Where am I? I'm here. Okay. Let's bring myself down here. Okay. So Oblivion is good. Love it, especially Star Wars month and Fortnite. It's been horrible this weekend. Has it? I mean, it has been tough. Like the other night, we had a really hard time with those matches. There is no denying that. So if you have not ever seen my other channel before, here it is. It's Roaming with Rolo. First video I ever did was Commander and I kayaking down in Oleta River State Park. I'm going to mute it because I don't know if I'm going to get hit with licensing here, because this channel does have premium music. But yeah, this is us kayaking through Oleta River State Park here. Cool stuff in the tandem kayak that we've got. So go ahead and check that out. Oblivion's been fantastic. It quite possibly is the greatest remaster ever made. I think in the state that it's in now, you could say that Halo, the Master Chief Collection, is like the best remaster / collection now. Obviously, when it came out, it was awful, so that doesn't really count. But this is probably the best remaster / remake ever made, because it still has all the glitches. You can still dupe items and do all that stuff, which I've done to a huge degree. You can still exploit, like, level up your destruction magic and all that stuff super fast by going to that cult of people that's like frozen. So all that stuff is still there. That it's just been crazy. So what the heck is going on with Adam? So you like Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition? I never played Xenoblade Chronicles, so I can't speak to that. But I think this has been a fantastic remaster / remake, and I think they knocked it out of the park. I think that Bethesda is foolish for not having Fallout ready for this. For the TV show, they should have had Fallout 3 or New Vegas, or both ready to go. I can't wait for them to do that. I think it's absolutely awesome. So, and like I said, I never played the original Oblivion. I got into Elder Scrolls really late in Skyrim. So for me, it was a big deal. So yeah. Anyway, this was Roaming with Rolo. This is Oleta River State Park. If you want to see other parts of Puerto Rico, here's a lighthouse here in Aguadilla. The ruins of a lighthouse. Just a short video there. Just some of the things that I've been doing. And then this is Cañón Blanco that I flew through with, one of my FPV drones. So you can check that out. This is beautiful in Utuado, Puerto Rico, in the interior of the island. I've got like almost 2 hours of footage of us hiking through this area and driving our cars through the mountains. We ended up at one of the reservoirs too that's just become, a massive lake, and it's got a huge reservoir that was built during the New Deal projects and all that stuff in Puerto Rico. Almost lost my drone flying through one of the the spillways there. And that was a lot of fun, but I've got to edit that. There's just hours and hours and hours of footage from that. There's so much. So Black Mesa's great. I've got to beat that too. I've got that in my Steam library. So, I mean, that's really the other thing that I've got to go through, right? I think right now is such a tough time to just find the time to play stuff. So yeah, I would check this out. I would recommend if you guys want to check out my other channel, Roaming with Rolo. I'll drop the link right here for you all. And you can check it out. That's that video right there of flying through Cañon Blanco. But I've got to get through games too. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to keep going with Oblivion just because that game is hundreds of hours long. This is what I've got on this rig so far installed that I've been playing more recently. Some of these I'm going to benchmark so we can see how this new computer is running, but I got to beat Cyberpunk. I've never beaten Cyberpunk yet. I want to play Red Dead again, but that's another game that's just going to take so long. I beat Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered and Forbidden West again recently off stream. I got to play RoboCop. Haven't played that. I mean, my library is just ridiculous of all the games that I've amassed over the years. And I'm sure there's a lot of games that you guys would love for me to stream here. I agree with you on that too, J-Tech. I think some games, look, what Fortnite has proven for better or for worse, Ready or Not is, I think I love Red Alert. The Command and Conquer games are some of my favorite of all time. Let's go in alphabetical order. You guys can judge my Steam library here. And then Xbox, I've got a ton of other stuff. But for Steam, I've got all the stuff. The Telltale Back to the Future game was great. See, this is why we don't need we already have Back to the Future Part 4. It's the Telltale Back to the Future game. It was pretty good. I got to beat Baldur's Gate. I haven't beaten Baldur's Gate. Obviously, all the Arkham games, I've done those. BattleBit Remastered, I didn't really play it. Played it a little bit. Gothic Armada, I actually didn't really like it that much because I love strategy games. I like turn-based strategy games. I don't like turn-based strategy games where you've got starships. So I didn't like the Battlestar Galactica game made by Slytherin either. Battle Stations Midway, one of my favorite World War II like sim type of games of all time. Battlezone 98 and Battlezone Combat Commander, amazing. Combining strategy games, first-person shooter, and vehicle combat, base building. There's nothing like it. Even Command and Conquer Renegade couldn't do what this game did. Renegade was awesome. I do have Tempest Rising, Good Wrench. It is in the library. That's a game that I could stream as well. I don't know how many people would like a strategy game, but that's pretty cool. Obviously, we've got all the BioShocks. There's your Black Mesa. I do have Borderlands. I've got all the Borderlands games, but I've only got 3 on PC right now. I've got Borderlands 2 on like everything. I think I bought that game 1,000,000 times. Your Command and Conquer games, obviously, Kane's Wrath 3, Red Alert 3. I do have Red Alert 2 and all that stuff. It's just not installed. As part of that EA, it's the EA collection there. I've even got the old CD-ROMs for Yuri's Revenge and all that stuff. Company of Heroes is awesome. I have been afraid to play Company of Heroes 3. Crisis. This PC does run Crisis very well. Cyberpunk, Deathloop. I did like Deathloop. It was pretty good. Not the best Bethesda game, but it was decent. Dishonored, awesome. I do have VR goggles, and I played some of these games. Skyrim VR and Fallout VR are awesome if you patch them and get all the mods. Obviously, New Vegas, Far Cry. Far Cry is amazing. I played the finals a couple of times. It was pretty cool. Grey Goo, really good strategy game. A real-time strategy game came out a few years ago. I wish it had done better. It's dead. It's never going to go anywhere. It sucks. The original Helldivers, played that back in the day. Homeworld Deserts of Karak, awesome. Homeworld is awesome. I do love Horizon. I'm not going to lie. It's always been the premise. I love the world of Horizon. Aloy is not my favorite protagonist. She's boring as hell, actually. Has nothing to do with her being a ginger or a chick. It's just, I think that she's boring. But I love the world, and robot dinosaurs are awesome. Ion Fury is a really cool retro shooter. Awesome stuff. I think it was actually Mark the Cyborg gifted this one to me. Good stuff. Iron Brigade, cool tower defense game. Iron Harvest, alternate World War One steampunk RTS. That's really cool. Just Cause. Everybody knows Just Cause. Left 4 Dead is amazing. Liftoff is a good FPV drone simulator. That's how I learned how to fly FPV drones. Lockdown Protocol is a game that I should probably play with you guys as the chat one day. It's a lot of fun. Mad Max was a really great open world game that was underrated. That would be another one to go back and look at. Spider-Man Remastered, you guys know what it is. I never played it on PlayStation, but I got it on PC. Metro, all the Metro games are great. Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, awesome. Nebulous Fleet Command is a cool little real-time strategy game in space, but with realistic physics, so everything is flying in 3D, and you've got like radar shadow and thrusters and all this stuff. Really hardcore. Next Machina, made by Housemarque, really awesome bullet hell top-down shooter that has an amazing soundtrack. Nier Automata is Nier Automata. You guys know Nier Automata. Fantastic game. Planet Coaster, great park management sim, just like Roller Coaster Tycoon, which I also love. Portal 1 and 2, great stuff. Prey, fantastic game. I wish it had gotten a real sequel. It's kind of the modern space BioShock. PUBG is PUBG. We got Quake. Ready or Not. If I could get Disbrew and Epic Mike to play again, it's just so tough to get those guys together nowadays. Everybody's so busy. I'd love to go back to Ready or Not. They've added so many maps. It's awesome. Rebel Galaxy was a good game. Red Dead Redemption was cool. Ricochet, I forgot what this was all about. Rocket League, Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, Saints Row 4 is ridiculous. Shadow Warrior is ridiculous. Civ 5. 6 Days in Fallujah is freaking intense. That would be another game like Ready or Not. Soldat is a really cool retro old school shooter. Space Engineers is cool. Spec Ops: The Line, great, gritty, effed up game. Awesome stuff. Splitgate's a lot of fun. It's another game that I wish had gone further. Stalker, I got the collection. Star Trek Bridge Commander is pretty cool. If you got VR goggles and you're a Trekkie, it's awesome. Battlefront collection could have been better. Maybe they patched it up now, but Battlefront is awesome. Obviously, KOTOR 1 and 2, some of the greatest RPGs of all time. Probably the best that BioShock has ever made. Republic Commando, one of the best Star Wars games ever made. And on May the 4th, see, this is what I should have done on May the 4th. I should have played Republic Commando or The Force Unleashed. That's what I should be doing instead. Or KOTOR. Stardew Valley, I never really played it, but it's there. I never got into it. Strike Suit Infinity, another cool like arcade style shooter. Supreme Commander, cool strategy game. You can see I love real-time strategy. System Shock, I got to go and play this one too. Bought it on sale. Talos Principle, one of the best puzzle games ever made, in my opinion. There's your Tempest Rising. You thought that I would know it, but of course, being an RTS and specifically a Command and Conquer fan, because though I like StarCraft, I've always been more of a Command and Conquer guy. Let's be perfectly honest. That's what it's all about. Tomb Raider, I don't care what Melanie Mac says. I do like the new Tomb Raider games. I think all three of them are great. I don't mind the Lara Croft design. I think that she's fine. I think Crystal Dynamics made good games. So y'all can disagree or agree with that one, but that's how I feel about it. So, and how did I become embiggened? I became embiggened, and now we've got 2 cameras. There we go. And there we go. Vermintide. Space Marine, Way of the Hunter, because I got my hunting license and I wanted to hunt video games. Wolfenstein and XCOM. StarCraft is the Walmart version of Command and Conquer. I don't know. Those StarCraft players would disagree with you, Den Hawken. So that's pretty much what I've got. That's what I've got. We've gone more than 2 hours. Once again, an impromptu show that went in directions that we had no idea we were going in. But that's the way that we do things. We got the Pew 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 hat. It's May the 4th. Well, I didn't really rank my Star Wars movies. I didn't spend time doing that. But I think if I've got to rank them, I went through a little bit of this last week. I think that for me, and we're only talking about the first 6 movies. So, gosh, it's really hard. I think Empire is number 1 for me. I think as the years have gone on, episode 3 is probably number 2 for me. Then it's Return of the Jedi. And that's just because as a kid, Jedi was my favorite. And it's because the Battle of Endor means so. I just love the Battle of Endor. I don't like the Ewoks. I don't like the ground Battle of Endor as much. But the space battle, top notch. Top notch. It's the best space battle until you get to episode 3. So Vermintide is a lot of fun. It is a great game. So I would think that's the way it's going to go. So it's going to be Empire, Revenge of the Sith, Jedi, A New Hope. Then it's going to go, obviously at that point, episode 2 and then episode 1. That's the way that it would work for me in that order. So, and I don't even think that episode 1 and 2 are terrible. At this point, looking back on it, episode 1, obviously Jar Jar Binks is awful. I think that we can do that, but I think I think that's a fair list. And yeah, Jedi gets worse as you get older because of the Ewoks. I think when you're a kid, for a lot of people, it may be the best. But then as you get older and you appreciate different things, it starts shifting on you. It's kind of like how Back to the Future was for me, where when I was a kid, Back to the Future 2 was by far my favorite of the 3. And then I did like 3 a lot, and then the original, but now it's like, no, the original is the best. And then Back to the Future 2 is probably the second best, and 3 is the worst one. But Back to the Future is just an amazing trilogy anyway. So, but that's a little bit off topic, but that's another one that I could talk about all day. But yeah, there you go. So that is my Star Wars tier list. It is Empire Strikes Back, Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Jedi, A New Hope, Attack of the Clones, and Phantom Menace, rounding out the bottom. If I include Disney Star Wars, maybe you could throw Rogue One in there. Probably Rogue One. Rogue One is going to be around episode 1 and 2, I would say. So, yeah, the train was great, especially since it flew away at the end. It was fantastic. The DeLorean on the tracks was amazing. I used to have a Lego set that was a train, and I would build a Lego DeLorean all the time, and I would build the train behind it and have it push the Lego DeLorean just like his the set. And I always loved how the doc was like, I apologize for the crudity of this model. It's not to scale. And meanwhile, it's like the most ridiculously accurate model that you could get. It took them like a day to build, and you're just like, what the hell? Everything is here. It's all represented, made from like materials they had lying around, and somehow it looks fantastic. And you're just like, whatever, doc. This is getting heavy. And he's like, there's that word again. Are things just, is the Earth's gravitational field, messed up in the future? So good stuff. So anyway, that's the Star Wars tier list. I'm sticking by it. Like I said, Rogue One might be able to fit in there at the tail end. I think Rogue One is a pretty good movie. Not even just for Disney Star Wars. I think it's a decent Star Wars movie in general. But so it's good stuff. And yeah, again, you're correct. It takes place in the original trilogy. So there was only so much that Disney could do to mess it up, even though they fucked up Solo so royally. Even though I'll be honest, seeing the criminal syndicates with Darth Maul in a sequel to Solo would have been interesting. That was an interesting premise, and I think I would have kind of liked that. Anything is better than some of the crazy shit that they've come up with after the George Lucas films. Everything is garbage. At least when they're constrained within that timeline, it's a little bit better. But I haven't gone back. Look, to my detriment, maybe, because I'm not up to date with everything in the industry the way that I used to be. I don't have Disney Plus. I haven't watched all this stuff. In a way, I've boycotted it. I've not wanted to watch any of it, so I can't compare to Andor. I don't hate watching stuff just to review it. I let everyone else do that, and then I would give my opinion on why I love the original stuff. But to me, it is just so difficult to hate watch it, even just to take it apart. It's just tough. So, yeah, I mean, Kyle Katarn was fantastic. I think that the Jedi Knight series is great. Jedi Outcast was a lot of fun. The multiplayer was amazing. I mean, I can't tell you the hours of fun that I had pushing Luke Skywalker off of the pathways or the scaffold ways of Nar Shaddaa. There's this great, fantastic, a great time there. Anytime that Aspire would bust out with those games on Nintendo Switch or something like that, I'm a sucker. I bought them. Every time. Kyle Katarn is the best. Rogue Squadron was amazing. That entire book series was great. I love Wedge. I love all those characters. And I wish that they were there. You know, we had the entire great storyline of the Empire escaping, Coruscant and leaving everything there, and the back to war, Hissane Isard and her superstar destroyer, the Imperial Remnant, and all the crazy stuff, the Hapes Consortium. I mean, there's so many fantastic storylines in the expanded universe. Some of it was cheesy and it messed up. Yeah, sure, of course. I mean, George Lucas did it with Jar Jar and the Ewoks. We know that it's always a hit or a miss, but none of it is nearly as bad as what Disney has done. And it was still fun, but badass at the same time. And that's the Star Wars that we'll miss. I think that with AI, we do have some amazing opportunities where some of this stuff, I think the cool thing for entertainment and AI is going to be the holodeck effect. It is going to be where we can punch in a lot of these old stories and say, we've got the Legends universe. Take these books and turn them into video games or movies for us based on the book. And we will be able to get all of these stories. And I think it'll be awesome. I think that is actually a very positive experience that we can get in the future, where AI will become our holodeck in that regard. And you'll have infinite possibilities, and we will be able to go into the past with our entertainment and create things that we've never could have anticipated. Oh, excuse me. Jeez, that was a big yawn. I tried to hold that off there, but I think the future is bright when it comes to things like that, and that's something that's optimistic and look forward to. So, but we'll see. I don't know. I don't know how companies are going to navigate through all of that. How they'll try to license everything. How you will get different iterations. How people will change things along the way, and yeah, how it will fragment and become strange, and it'll be like telephone. Will there be officially licensed versions like that? Will each AI have its own flavor? It's definitely possible. So maybe the original stories will get lost, but I think it's kind of inevitable that that's probably what will happen. And it's going to be wild stuff. I'll tell you that. So anyway, that has been episode 33 of Rolo's Rants. I'll be back later this week with another gaming stream. The week after that's going to be a little bit weird because I will be traveling back to Puerto Rico. So I don't know what the schedule is going to be in a couple of weeks. But next week, we should still have a gaming stream. We should be back from Orlando, Commander and I. So we'll talk about our experience at Epic Universe and what we thought about it. And next Sunday, I'll give a full report and review. So I think we got some things to look forward to, and we'll keep you posted on the schedule as I go back to Puerto Rico in the next couple of weeks. Thank you so much again to Greg the Goblin for this $20 super chat at the beginning. Thanks to Kamo and Den Hawken for bringing up the mods in the chat. Wayfarer, J-Tech, Good Wrench, Blue Shell, Forgotten Man, JM the Elite Fan, Novella Princess, who else was in here earlier? Adam, Arleone, Socrates Magoat. Thank you all so much for hanging out. I appreciate you all. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Cerberus, there he is. Can't forget Cerberus.